Good morning. Welcome to my channel. Has anyone ever bullied you, called you names just to get you upset, such as communist, Marxist, socialist? Well, we've heard those adjectives being slung around, spoken about our president, President Obama. But as anyone would know, name calling and bullying has been around for centuries, and it goes back further than the written form of English, or when cavemen were just drawing pictures. I'm sure there was some kind of picture drawn mocking someone for having big ears, big eyes, big lips, or something. It just seems to be the state of man to want to use words to bring a person down. But on the flip side, we use words to elevate a person. In my book, which I will be going through today, When Will Eve Be Forgiven?, we see that Eve in the Bible has been called many names, some positive, some negative. And when I say Eve, I'm using her to stand in for women in general, because it was from Eve that pretty much womanhood graduated from. And everyone likes to go back whenever they are tapped out to what is so wrong with this world. And the final stance would be, if it wasn't for Eve, everything would be beautiful and wonderful, which invokes the Eve syndrome, which I've coined and defined in previous videos as just a syndrome where women all feel the guilt, the embarrassment whenever Eve's name is brought up, because bring up Eve's name, people turn to you and look at you as if you stand in for Eve at all times for her sin of the fall of man that helped the fall of man. Because as we know, Eve was not in the garden alone. And it said that the craftiest of all creatures spoke to her first. And I always say the craftiest of all creatures must have decided, hey, let me speak to the one that is going to be the more difficult to sway. There would be no need for the craftiest of all of God's creation to be emphasized if it could have been any of them just said, hey, eat this apple, as they say, or the fruit of the tree, of the tree. But he had to go into a major dialogue with Eve before she would partake. So there's a few hints about what occurred if you give it a few moments to think about it, but I bring it up in my book, When Will Eve Be Forgiven? And I just point them out. Like I say, I do not try to sway or manipulate your opinion on anything. I just present what's in the Bible and say, hey, let's talk about it. So today we're going to be talking about adjectives. Like I said earlier, there are so many adjectives being thrown around out there, and I post and say the problem with children bullying children is pretty much they're following the example of adults bullying adults in the political realm that's broadcast on cable news in cyclically. You try to say it in cycles, I think would be better. And they get to see the name calling, the stern and furrowed brow, and the slightly veiled threats on a daily basis. So I really say stop the bullying. Adults, you're a bad example. Politicians, and it really needs to start with you first if you're going to say children, stop. But let's move on from there and see what many names the Bible has used to refer to women as delightful creatures, beautiful creatures. And let's just take a look at that. And as always, I tell you, I'll read directly from my book so I won't miss anything, and so you can actually get a flavor of what is in here. So I'm going to turn to page 7 of my book, and I will begin there. The range of words used to define woman continually swing the continuum from good to bad. The good traits of the woman are, she said, to be obedient in 1 Peter 3:5-7. Concerned for children, and that's in Exodus. Loyal, as in Ruth 1:14-18. Desiring for children. That's 1 Samuel, 1st chapter, 9-28th verse. Modesty. She has modesty, as in the book of Esther. Industry. That was a term used so long ago. My grandma said, you need to be industrious. That means I was up busy finding things to clean, fix, mend, sew. Just do, as in busy work. Always wanting something to have to be done, to be finished. Industry. Complete devotion. So woman is said to have complete devotion in Luke 7th chapter 38th verse to 50th verse. Tenderness in John. And some of the bad traits attributed to women are enticing evil, inciting evil. In Genesis, she's subtle. In Proverbs, fond of adornment, as in Isaiah. Self-indulgent, easily led into idolatry and led away. And I ask you, is there any wonder the writers of early Christianity had a difficult time assessing the nature of woman? Come on, you have this good side and this bad side, the schizophrenic woman. And it seems like she is unable to decide which side to stay on. So you have her swinging from one position to the next. So, how can woman find a correct definition of who she is? And the men observing her, if she's swinging from these different positions of loyalty, modesty, to easily enticed and led to idolatry. You're going to have to just forgive me for saying adultery. Idolatry, old century, me, a little past that, not part of my everyday vocabulary. But somehow adultery seems to be, hey, just saying here adultery more, easier to pronounce. So just be patient with me when it comes to that word. Okay, we as humans have a need to label and categorize whatever we encounter. Yeah, we're going to stick a label on you. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. Instead of, hi, I'm Dorothy. No, this is Dorothy, the author, the wannabe author. So we stick a label there. Sometimes it's positive. Sometimes it's to deride the person. But labels we are full of. The indefinable raises fear within our primal being. Okay, something new, something I've never seen, something that is a little, I can't explain. It produces a fear response in many people. The presidency, President Obama, is the first. He is new, African American man. He was going to strike fear as a first response to the unknown in a lot of people. That was not unexpected at all. I don't know who wasn't prepared for that. I'm sure he knows that. Since it is difficult to label woman, it is easier to fear woman for her mysterious, indefinable existence. So,